world's tallest looping coaster.
Full Throttle, Six Flags YOLO coaster for 2013. Built and designed by Premier Rides, features the world's tallest vertical loop at 160 feet, which is now not a record anymore. So, what is my opinion of this roller coaster? Well, I'm going to be talking about not only my opinion of this roller coaster, but I'm also going to be covering where Six Flags went wrong with this roller coaster, where they went wrong with the design of the area, and also where they could have improved on this ride, because they could have made so many improvements to this ride and made it way better than what it turned out to be. So before we get into Full Throttle, we should go back to before Full Throttle. Where Full Throttle is right now sat a water ride named Log Jammer. And basically, that was hands down the best water ride in the park. So when I heard the announcement that they were gonna tear down Log Jammer, I was really mad and disappointed about it because I loved Log Jammer. And it was the best water ride because it was the longest one. It was like 2 of Jetstream. It's like if you took Jetstream and connected it to another Jetstream, that's how long Log Jammer was. And it didn't really have any theming, but the thing that was great about it is it went all through the mountains, and there was so many trees before they built Full Throttle that when Log Jammer went through it all, it was cool. And they had a lot of water where Gold Rusher would go down by it and do that turn. Back to Full Throttle. Where they went wrong with this coaster. The whole announcement, commercial, and basically the very gimmick that they came up with for it, the YOLO coaster. Like, it was all poorly represented for this coaster, in my opinion. Other people maybe think different, but I think that the whole gimmick of the YOLO and trying to basically reach out to the newer generation, it was pretty bad. It was just bad. There's no other way to put it. It was bad. Basically, if you've never rode Full Throttle, to break it down, you launch into a loop, and then after the loop, you do a turn and you go over Superman into a dive loop, and then you come to a complete stop. And then it launches you backwards into the dive loop, and then you come back down and it shoots you through the launch again and then over the loop, and that's it. That's pretty much the end of the ride. So it's not even a really long ride, and that's the biggest missed opportunity of this coaster. It's so short, and it could have been so much more than what it turned out to be. My favorite part of this ride, as it sits, is the launch and the loop. After that, the ride is basically pointless. Where I think they can improve on this ride dramatically, and I wish they would have done it. First off, my biggest issue. Why do you come to a complete stop in the tunnel just to launch backwards and go through the launch again? Why don't they just have it go from the dive loop and then into the launch and up the hill, like up the loop again? Like, why do they stop you? It could have been just way better if they just had it just launch you. That's it, just launch you. There's no need to stop and then go backwards and then launch again. I think that's pointless, and it completely takes away from the ride. My second biggest thing about this, you finally go over the loop, but then you hit a brake run. Basically, the only drop on this ride is a brake run. This is where they could have made the biggest improvement to this ride. If you look at the area where Full Throttle sits, there is a lot of land to the left of it, to the right of it, in front of it, behind it. It's not like there wasn't a big enough footprint to make this ride better than it is. I know Premier Rides designed this, but what were they thinking? They had so much land and so much room. They could have made this ride do multiple things. Here's an example. Instead of hitting that brake run, it could have went over the pathway, where the old monorail station was. It could have did some elements there. It could have did a turnaround on the whole concrete area and came back to the station. It could have even went over to where Revolution is. Now here's another thing it could have done. After the launch, it goes into the loop. Instead of going over Superman, it could have made that right turn and did a whole bunch of elements in that whole area right there that I'm highlighting. It could have did something there. Instead of making a right out of the loop, it could have made a left and did a whole bunch of elements on that side. It could have went over Superman and it could have did a whole lot of elements on the side of the hill. I mean, there's still some room back there. It could have did something more than what it did. So why they kept this ride really short? I think it was a budget issue at the time. And I think they really cheaped out on what this ride could have been. Another thing let's talk about is the area. Not only the ride, but the area was poorly designed. If you remember Logjammer and that whole area before, it was called Sierra High Territory. And basically, it was this beautiful area where it had so many trees and so many planters. It was shady. It had this huge arcade and it had amazing games inside. I used to love going to that arcade. And over where Logjammer was, there was this little area where you could sit down and watch Logjammer do the last drop, its huge drop. And you could put a quarter in, and as the people would come by, it would shoot the water jets at them and squirt them and soak them. I used to sit there and love doing that, like soaking people when they come by. So basically that area was designed really well before Full Throttle. Now after Full Throttle came, they demoed that entire area, kept the building where the arcade was, but changed the arcade into a overpriced food place. It was way better as an arcade, so they changed that to an overpriced food place, demoed the whole area, and just basically laid a giant thing of concrete. I mean, there's no theming to that area. It's just a giant piece of concrete. The places to sit are very limited. It's not themed. I mean, I challenge someone to tell me what the theme of Full Throttle is. What is the theme of that area in Full Throttle? Because I would love to know what the theme of that area is, because I still don't know, and it's years later. The whole line, the front entrance, terrible design. It's a bunch of chained switchbacks under this giant white tent with a huge TV screen, basically playing ads. So what is the theming to that? I don't understand where they were going with it. The hard thing I have with it is, what is the theming? That's my question. If anyone in the comments can tell me this, what is the theming of that area? What is the theming of Full Throttle's whole area? They really missed out on what this ride could have been, because this ride could have been probably one of the best roller coasters at Six Flags. But like I said, I feel like there was a lot of budget cuts, whether they didn't have the money to do it or whether they were being cheap. I don't know. And they should have just waited. If they didn't have the money, they should have just waited another year and then did the ride properly. But like I said, there's always room to improve on this ride. They have multiple options. It's not impossible. They can still design more track for this ride, and they can make this ride better. A perfect example of this is, well, they didn't add anything to X2, but they completely re-themed X2. They repainted it and they put new trains on it. They can do this for Full Throttle. They can re-theme that entire area. They can add more track to it, and they can make it better than what it is. So let's get into the positives about the roller coaster. It's the only real launch coaster at Six Flags. If you consider Superman, I know it's a launch coaster, but it takes so long for it to get from 0 to 100. It's not like at Knott's Berry Farm Accelerator, it goes from 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. Superman just takes way too long to get there. So basically, when they announced Full Throttle, that's what I was most happy about. It wasn't even the loop. It was the fact that Six Flags is finally getting a real launch coaster. So that's one thing that I truly love about Full Throttle, is that it's the only real launch coaster in the park. The loop, when I first rode it, I thought, oh, it's just gonna be a giant loop. But when you're in that loop and you see the world upside down, you can actually see the curve of the earth, and I thought that was amazing. I love that part of the ride. After that, though, the rest of it was really disappointing. I mean, it was really cool that they had the dive loop go into the old metro station tunnel. Like, that was more nostalgic than anything to me. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people who don't know a lot about Six Flags missed that part of the ride, and they don't understand, like, oh, this tunnel used to be for the metro that used to go through here. So that part was pretty cool to me. But other than the launch, the loop, and the nostalgia of the tunnel, the rest of the ride is terrible. Like, there's no real good part of the ride after that. So when I personally ride that ride, it's for the launch and the loop. Other than that, there's no reason for me to go on that ride. Just tell me your opinion. Tell me what you think about it in the comments. Do you agree with me? Do you think that it could have been more and they could have added to it? Or do you disagree with me and think, you know, it's fine the way it is? I'm complaining too much? Or just tell me your opinion in the comments. Also, in a future video, I'm going to be talking about the whole DC area from Batman to Riddlers, and in between it where Green Lantern and Tidal Wave is, because there is a huge opportunity for Six Flags in that area that I don't think a lot of people realize. So stay tuned for my next video on that. Please like and subscribe. I got way more videos on the way, and thanks.